We start today with Britt Ghiroli. Britt wrote a column for The Athletic about Juan Soto and his pending free agency. Soto. Britt, what did you learn about what Soto will be valuing in his upcoming free agency?
Well, I think, Sal, that the big factor for him is trust. And certainly, as illustrated through that story I wrote with The Athletic, he values people that he can trust. And if you're in his inner circle, as Kevin Long is, as Pat Rosser is, who was the Yankees' assistant hitting coach this year, then Soto feels like he can be himself. I think him turning down that big contract by the Nationals, he really felt betrayed, and it kind of forced him to really look at who he felt like had his best interests at heart. And from a location perspective, I think New York is something that is comfortable to him. He has family here. He can, easily go see his parents. His parents can easily see him in the Dominican. So for a guy like Soto, it is all about comfort and trust.
I want it to be about that money as well, Britt, feeling like the Mets might have a chance if that would be the case. What kind of deal could Soto command on the open market this season? It seems like every day he sets foot on the field, it goes up and up and up. What are we looking at for Juan Soto?
Yeah, okay, let's make no mistake. Money is always number one for these guys. But if we're going like 2, 3, 4, then we're getting into comfort and trust. But certainly this guy's going to get more than the $440 million that he turned down from the Nationals 2 years ago. Every time, you're right, every time he gets a hit, you might as well ring up that register, another couple million. I mean, there are executives in this game, many who believe that he will go over that $500 million mark. There are people that are close to Soto that think that he is someone who is after records, whether it's Ohtani's AAV, which is valued at $43 million with all the deferrals and taking that into proper context. I don't think he's going to get that $700 million unless he wants to defer what Ohtani did. But he's had a record already. He's making more than any arbitration-eligible player ever has in this sport. So he has, quote, big eyes, was maybe one of my favorite sayings in this story. He's hungry. He enjoys the bright lights of New York. And I think he knows he's going to get paid, barring a catastrophe.
All right. I mean, look, we'll be fascinated to follow this story, obviously, all season long, with hopes that there is a chance that maybe, just maybe, Soto can get to the Mets eventually. Let's make a call to the bullpen and welcome in Dani, Wexelman, and John Harper. All right, Harper, what did you think of what Britt had to say there about Juan Soto's pending free agency?
Yeah, well, great story, Britt. A lot of interesting stuff in there. Interesting to me that he never thought the Nationals would actually trade him, first of all, even when they turned down that $440 million. And it didn't work in San Diego, partly because it sounds like he really wasn't invested, and as Britt talked about the trust, and he never thought they would be able to pay him because they already had so many big contracts there. That's why I do think it's going to work in New York one way or another. I think the Yankees, it feels like a really good fit. I think he wants to be surrounded by guys like Aaron Judge and be part of a winning team, but also go get the money. There was a quote in Britt's story from I think an executive saying that he's been thoroughly Borisized, meaning he wants that every last dollar. But I think the other factors do come into play here. So if it's not the Yankees, then I do think the Mets would surely be in play. But I think there's going to be so much pressure on Hal Steinbrenner to keep him, especially as a big year, which it certainly looks like he's off to a start that kind of year. So it could end up being fascinating. But I think the Yankees have a big edge right now.
I think what we know ultimately, not only from your incredible reporting, Britt, great job, but from what we've heard around from the media, from everyone who works in baseball, is that Juan Soto is going to get a lot of money. And something that stood out in your article, Britt, is when he said that there's no money for me here in San Diego when he saw all those big contracts being given out. And so you can tell that that is something that's important to him. And when he talks about setting the market, that just tells us that he wants the money. He wants to get paid. You can't really fault him for wanting to get paid. I would wish that he just came out and said it instead of using setting the market. But here's the thing, guys, is that if he performs the way he has already, if he's got that one in front of some of his big statistical numbers, the OPS in particular, that he's going to get a huge contract. And you know what? I don't really care because Juan Soto deserves that. When you get compared to Ted Williams and you won a World Series and a batting title and you're on your third team in 3 years and you play the way he does, it's really obvious through that reporting, Britt, is that he doesn't trust anybody, but he does want to get paid. And I would imagine his family would love to see that payday come through as well. But for the Mets. I don't know if the Mets are going to be able to pull him away. If they win a World Series, I don't know if you leave the team
That's why there's going to be huge
with.
pressure on Hal Steinbrenner. But I think that's the point here. No matter what kind of numbers he puts up, if there's that kind of a bidding war for him between the Mets and the Yankees, the number is going to be probably higher than we even expected.
Agreed, much like we saw at Yamamoto, but even at a higher level. Britt, do you think the results of this year, whether it is the success of the Yankees or failures of the Mets, will have a significant impact whether Juan Soto chooses one or the other?
Not really, unless the Yankees win a World Series. And I don't think this was talked about enough in that article, but Juan Soto wants to win. I had people who told me that out of everybody on that Padres team, he was the most competitive. He took the losses the hardest. So if the Yankees go out and they win a World Series, I do think that would matter to Juan Soto. But if the Yankees go and they make the playoffs, they lose in the first round, whatever, I think Steve Cohen and David Stearns have an opportunity to lure Juan Soto to the Mets for a couple reasons. One, he is the guy there, bar none. He doesn't have to worry about, a Fernando Tatis or a Manny Machado or an Aaron Judge. He could go and be the guy with the Mets. I know they have Lindor. I think everything we know about Lindor and McNeil and some of these guys, they would step aside and let Soto have the spotlight. And two, I find it very hard to believe if Steve Cohen says, let's go, I don't care what he wants, we're going to win this, that Scott Boras and Juan Soto, based on what they have said, based on their past, I find it very hard to believe that they would leave money on the table when it comes to this negotiation. So I think, Sal, you're right. I think the Mets have a real actual chance here. Now, I do think they'd have to hire Pat Roessler or Kevin Long or somebody Juan Soto feels comfortable with. But that's really pennies on the dollar when you're talking about bringing a guy like Juan Soto into your organization for the next decade or more.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge or the biggest hurdle would be if Juan Soto just loves being a Yankee so much, and if the difference in what Steve Cohen would offer is not that significant to what Hal Steinbrenner would offer, that's where maybe the Mets would be at a disadvantage. But I love everything I'm hearing from you, Britt, because it means that the Mets are at least in play. Money is not going to be an issue, and they're trying to build this thing the right way. And if Soto's not going to make it a deciding factor right now about who's closer to winning, then maybe the Mets have a realistic chance. Soto.